The first mod we're going to talk about is this one right here. The Big Bore Cylinder by Bill Blue, Wichita, Kansas. Typically the cylinder is only 249 centimeters. At least the original one is. The unfortunate thing is Kawasaki doesn't make a 400-450 model. They only really have is this sort of tiny dual sport. One of the advantages this bike does have over other light dual sports is that it can have a very large cylinder and get quite a bit of power out of it. Some people have rated around 35 horsepower. In theory, you could get 38. Bill Blue is a bit of a hero to KLX owners because he's allowed our bike to have power comparable to that of a 400cc bike or to a WR250. However, the way that the power curve works between the WR250 and the KLX, different people who ride KLXs hate riding WRs because they require a really high RPM to get their power, whereas WR people hate riding KLXs because it feels like you're just lugging it with like really low RPM. The bike certainly does have its place. Now, as I mentioned before, Bill Blue is a bit of a hero among KLX owners. He's this guy, he's gotta be in his 70s, and he used to be an engineer. He found a way to take this engine and put in a 350cc bore. It almost goes all the way out to the edge of the cylinder. Here's what the old one looks like. Put it on there, you might be able to tell. Actually, it doesn't look that surprisingly that much smaller. Or I do have a picture, and I'll flash that over as I talk. By doing this one modification, gives you just about as much horsepower as a stock WR. And it's interesting, this Bill Blue character, because he was this like aerospace engineer. And then he just, in his retirement, has a hobby of, he bought one of these KLX 250s and just wanted to try to find a way to get the most power out of it he could. And since then he's been selling the boards to all of us, making a bike very versatile and very powerful. Just adding to the modifications that you do to it. But not everybody goes for the 351 kit. I mean, Bill Blue also makes a 330. And this other company makes a 330, which isn't a wet sleeve. It still has some of the cylinder material around it between the coolant and the actual cylinder sleeve. Now this alternate company actually makes a nickel sleeve rather than the steel one. And some people claim this is better because it's more resistant to corrosion and will last a bit longer. However, I'm not exactly sure. Certainly nickel does have its caveats. There is some merit to it if you're doing intense stairs at riding constantly. Having the smaller cylinder is advantageous if you do want to do AFI, and some people just don't really want to go with the most intense engine. They just want to keep it small. Going up to a 351 cylinder from a 250 reduces your gas mileage from about 100 miles per gallon to about 70 at best. So there is that to think about. And you do feel a pretty large power increase from the engine. However, it's not enough that I would say to be dangerous. Sometimes when people get onto their first bike and it's like a 600cc, look at this whiskey throttle, they'll just pull it and then not know how much power they're dealing with. In all honesty, you could probably do just fine starting out with 350. It's a bit intense, but it's doable for a beginner. I had actually changed out the cylinder after only about 800 miles on this bike. So unfortunately, the 250 version, you either really have to have a really intense gear ratio or get a lot more engine power in order to get up anything more than moderate difficulty, I would say. A lot of people, before they do this upgrade, if they're doing the 250, if they really want to do off-road, I mean anything more than just kind of the beginner trails, then they'll have to get like they'll have to put on a 13 front sprocket, and well, I was running 1345 in the beginning. But then you really can't ride on roads all that well, so having more power does increase versatility. There are a few things to think about doing this. Is it the most critical thing? Some people would argue that the most critical upgrade for the bike is to upgrade the suspension. Now, that's the first thing to do because the suspension is ridiculously soft on this. Some people actually say upgrade the carburetor first to a pumper car. In reality, actually, the most common thing that people upgrade is the exhaust first because the one that's originally on here is pretty tight. There's some common worries about the cylinder. And one of those is that the engine won't be able to cool it, that it just won't be able to handle it. You have to remember that this bike was actually initially designed as a 300cc engine. So you can't think of it as increasing. I mean, it's not the same as thinking of it as increasing a whole 100cc. you're actually only increasing it about 50, or about 17% from what it was originally. Kawasaki is notorious for actually overdoing things, and if you look at the fact that this bike has two rather large radiators, it can actually cool up to a 500cc engine easily, which is why you're able to have a wet sleeve here and not have any problems. I mean, I've never had any cooling issues in like the 4,000 miles I've put on the cylinder. And the nice thing is this works with the original carburetor. It is actually kind of brilliant how well this goes in and doesn't cause any other problems. Like the clutch as well. Kawasaki overbuilt their clutches so you don't have the clutch slip that you would occasionally have with other bikes for increasing their power so significantly. One caveat is that some people report hitting their rev limiter sooner, which means that they can't actually get their bike above a certain RPM. Like for me, I don't think I've ever gotten my bike above 9,500. And some people report this, some people report less, they'll actually report maybe 8,500, 9,000. And the reason why is because this piston right here is actually a lot heavier than the original one. Bill Blue designed it to be about as heavy as the 300s, but it still increases the amount of force that's being thrown around, so somehow, which I understood how this device worked, but somehow it makes it think that it's hitting its maximum revolutions earlier. But with the way that most people ride, you don't need that top end as much, unless you're some ridiculous race rider. In which case, you're kind of crazy.